I think in order for me to get the right visual of how I want this to work, I'm going to cut round and make the buttons up. Then I've got a block of colour that I'm dealing with. So I'm just going to cut around here. These are really quite simple to do. With this fabric it's a little bit awkward because I want to wriggle. I'll do either side first, then push everything around and into place as firmly as I can. It'll take me a couple of times to go around and push everything onto those teeth, but I prefer these ones than the ones that you use a die to do. I'm going to take my time to do that. I don't have very much fabric, so I have to work with what I've got. I'm going to push that underneath the teeth with this pin. It's up to you what you use. I often find a pin is pretty good. And then put that on and just push it into place. That's the theory anyway. I think I need to pull that in a couple of places to make it really firm. It's not as firm as I'd like it. I also find if I catch under the teeth like this, the bottom usually goes on a lot better. In that side and then work it around. I might have to use this. That's that side. There we go, snap. So I'll do the other two. I have a problem, and that problem is I don't have enough fabric for the back of the chair. What I do need is a piece that is 17 long, and so I'm going to cut the bottom of this off and make sure it goes all the way across, and the same with the top. I'm going to just cut the top here as I decide how to do this. And across, and I'll cut this off here like this. I've just taken the top of the fabric off, adjust that and cut this off too. Then I'll know exactly how long the fabric is that I've got. The width I can adjust shortly. Although this is cut out, I still have 17 inches of fabric, and I might just use that as a reference point. I think I might just do a really narrow, might be a bit wider, maybe to there, like that. The buttons have to go down the centre. I don't want them to be exactly inside the moons. So if that's 17, let me find out where my halfway mark is. My middle button would be there. I'm folding this up. My top button there, my bottom one around about there. It's just an idea at the moment. The moon would almost be centred down the back, and those would be right close there like that. I think that would work, and I think having that as the fold line will be perfect because the moon is almost in the centre without it being in the centre, if you see what I mean. The buttons have to be in the centre of the back. The moon is centralised enough not to be a problem. I'm just going to iron this out with plenty of steam so it is nice and flat. I'll do the same with this side too. If I want that fold to be there, like that, I'm going to iron that in. It will be my match line. Iron that one, pull it straight to this one, then just make sure that those stars up there are doing exactly the same as they're doing here. Apply lots of steam. Line up this star on top of that one, like that. Open the folded fabric up because I want it to look like the fabric is folded on top. I'm going to run the side of this along the fold, folding back just to start off with, and again I'm going to pop that on there where that is, open it up and pull one piece of fabric against the other. As I get closer, I'm going to put this star on this one, like that. Open the fabric up, pull it taut but not tight. Just double check that's where I want it. And carry on going. And continue to the end. There's really not very much I can line up down here, I don't think. Oh, maybe there. And back for now. I'm going to pop this under here, run the raw edges together like this, and I'm going to sew over the stitch line that I've just put in. Just make sure everything is flat. You can see how well I did. Fold all of that over like that, push that into there. It's gone in quite well. I'm going to iron that along here where I can see the fold on the fabric, because as I put the fabric over the top it's pushing it forward and I don't want that to happen. As I pull this over it should leave everything in place. I can feel it all the way up to the end there. Iron this back into place, and now I've got to work out where these buttons are actually going to be placed. Let's measure. I want 17 inches. Put that in the middle. I need the bottom here to go over the edge, so I'm going to have to raise that up a little bit, I think. If I make that 18 to there, that goes up, and that goes up just a little bit into the moon. I think that'll be fine. Put a pin at the top, and then that's down there, and there's my 17. I'll put another pin at the 17 so I know where that is. half of 17. If I fold that over like that, put a pin here where my halfway mark is, and then half of that from there down to there, that's that one, and then there up. I'm going to make them 3/4 of an inch in, I think, because then I've got at least 1/4 of an inch on the outside. I'll just mark that too, like that. On that crosshairs is where I need to put the hole for this to go through, and now mark the other two as well. Found the opening there, push that through it like that, and push that against there. Open that up with the white fabric touching it, and I'm going to open that up and make a nice big hole so that will fit through. Then that goes onto there. I'm going to straighten everything out, make sure that's where I want it. If anything, push it back towards the fold. Put my fingers underneath, and here is where I'll need to sew the button shank. This is going to be a bit awkward because it's not going to want me to do it. There we go. It's double thread, so I'm going to put 4 stitches in, and then I'll cast off, and then I'll work out where the other two are. It takes a little minute to do this, but it is worth it in the end. Now make sure that the shank comes all the way through the fabric before you sew it onto the back here. Reline it though to make sure that it's in the right place. I like the way this one went in, but I'm re-sewing this one, and then I'll sew this one into place. I sometimes do that. I'll start with something that's like, I prefer the positioning of that. Put that in place and turn it over, and that's where I'm going to be sewing it, just the shank, nothing else. That's a lot better. It's tighter if it's just the shank. So the last one, pull it up along there and cut a couple of threads. Remove the pin and then cut right down. If it's moved slightly, it won't matter. It's not like anybody's going to measure it. Pop that there, see if I can find it. Might not have gone all the way through, so I'm going to have to re-cut that so it goes all the way through. You don't want to be putting huge holes in it. It's only a small hole. That's where it comes through, like that. Take the pin out, and I'm going to make a big hole for everything to fit through, because I want the shank to be really easy to get hold of. Lay that out, fold that back, push that through, and also go so that this will pull away. Otherwise, if I cut it that way, then you do end up with a big hole. Pop that through there, fold that back, and hopefully everything will come through to the other side. So I'll lift that. There's my shank there, and all I've got to do is lay that down and sew it into place. Now I've got the buttons in place, I'm going to fold that over like that and cut this back. It doesn't need to be that deep. It's done its job. I'll leave that doesn't matter. I am now going to measure in 3/4 of an inch from here, like that, and 3/4 of an inch in here too. Now the reason I've done that is because I need to center the back onto the chair, and that's my center marks. This is the top, and it's quite bulky, so I'm going to cut up here towards the top like that. Take that out for a minute. I can measure up again from the bottom, and I'm going to take this right out like that all the way, because I don't want too much bulk in there. And the same on this side. I'll measure it up. Oh, actually I can see where it was. I think it was there. I'm going to allow the patterns to match across. It was halfway through here to here and across to here. So I'm going to iron here and across there. And I'm also going to do it this way as well to there. I've got a proper fold line for the back tacking that make life a lot easier for me. I've measured the centre here, and this is the measurement for the centre of the back. I decided that I wasn't going to put any shaping on the back. I'm going to pop a pin here like that, down and in, and that's close enough. If that moves slightly, I'm not going to worry about it. Flip the fabric all the way to the back like that and bring that down and into place. I've put a pin here to hold the pleat. I've put 2 pins here just to hold the weight, and I've pinned it into the back of the chair because the buttons, the extra fabric is quite heavy there. And I'm going to lay that along that fold line from here to here. That's where the dips are. I'm going to put that in first, one either side, to make sure that's held in place. And that will give me some idea of where to put the rest of this. I think I'm going to just pull this out towards the side here. I'm not going to go all the way to the edge, but certainly towards there. And the same on this side. Now I know that the bottom of the moon is kind of hidden on here, kind of showing there, but I don't think it's going to be much of a difference either side. It's very close. I've just removed the pins that were here holding this into place so that I can flip this and remove this pin as well, because I don't want that there. I'm going to pull that down so it's in line with that fold that I put in earlier, and I'm going to staple that into position 2 all the way across. Cut up and across so it's nice and close and therefore won't be too bulky. Any pins that I've got in there need to come out. Put this into position along the top here, cut that back as well. Put it in first to the top of the back tacking, and here again I'm just going to cut back just a little bit. It's still enough to be folded over the top when the fabric's folded. See what that looks like. Once everything's pulled down, I think that will hold. So if I measure across here, the back is 16 inches. So the centre of the back needs to come along this line. That's actually quite a good line to match up with. Move that pin, I don't need that anymore. And let me cut out some of this. Don't need all this in here either. Straighten all of that over the sides for now. I'm going to measure this across to 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to take that pin out of there because I really don't need it. I can line that up with the star. Pull this down. I'm going to have to twist everything under. I'm going to just cut along here for now, because I can always trim back in a minute, like that. Pull that back. That's in line with the side of the star there, but I'm going to start here. I'm going to fold that back and under. There's quite a bit of give in this fabric. Put that there, and then I'm going to staple that into place. Come on down here, pulling this down and into place too. I think I might have to cut a little bit more back. Nobody's going to see this under here. And if I pull that there, cut a little bit further back here. I'm not going to go all the way to the end, but I'll certainly get this in. Leave that in the top only. Pull that back. Cut this side back. To that stitching, most of that can come out. I'm going to just cut it up to that stitching because I really don't need that. Like that. Close on that side. Fold all of that under. I might need to come back and have another go at this and staple that into position on that side, and then I'm going to pull it down on this side. As I say, I'll probably have to rework this little area. Come back in a minute and do that. I'm going to pull that down from the top. I've taken most of that bulk out. I'm quite pleased with that. And now work to this corner. I'm not going to go all the way over because I do want to work out how I'm going to pull this back in on the sides. I have decided to use aluminium back tacking. Pop that here, right up to the base there. And I'm going to measure in 1/4 of an inch all the way down. I don't want it too close to the edge, otherwise the metal will show. Push that in. In order to make it straight, I will measure every second one and then fill in the space. I'm going to have to take those out and straighten them up. I don't want a squiffy line, I want a straight line. And I'll do this both sides. Fold the teeth over so they're almost touching the other side, like that. And I've taken this one a little bit shy of the bottom. It's not very much room for what I want to do, but it'll be okay. Cut this back, not too close, because I do want it to come over the teeth, but not too much because I don't want all the bulk there. I can feel the end of the chair here, so I'm going to cut a little ways down, so it should go right around those teeth. This is sometimes a hit and miss, but I'd much rather overcut than undercut all the way to the bottom. I'm folding this all the way under so it's level. Pull this down and start putting that underneath. I'm not going to put it underneath very far. I'm not pulling that across at all. If anything, I'm pulling it up and into place. So by holding that in the centre there and working my way down, I can now cut this a little bit closer than what it was. I've got a thick pin that I'm going to just push all of this into place like that as I go down. Just make sure all those loose ends are in there as much as you can. You might have to go up and down to make sure that that happens all the way in. And then I'm going to get my hammer and hammer it all into place. If you see any loose ends, just pop them in and then finish it off. And do that on both sides. I am not happy with the way this is opening up, so I am going to go along this outside edge and I'm going to hand sew it down. I think because it's an open weave, it's just got too much give to it and I'm not happy with that. If I sew that into place, it will hold better and it will give a better look to the shaping on the back of this chair. I often change my mind about things, so a little bit of extra work ain't going to hurt me. It's just a ladder stitch, the same stitch as I always use. So maybe with a loose weave you want to put the seam actually on the sew line, and then with all the puffing up underneath, that will still give the illusion that it is folded. It'll take me a little minute. These are stitches about 1/4 of an inch all the way up on that sew line that I had. I'd much rather it looks how I want it to look, not how it's turning out at the moment. And then I'll get the second side in, and that should really pull the shaping in on the back here. I wanted it to have a more open look, but as I say, this is just not working the way I wanted it to work. Still got the bulkiness of the fold, and the buttons go into the fabric like they should. You don't want those to be wobbly, you want them to be secure. So I had originally thought, when I was first planning on this, to put top stitching along this edge about 1/4 of an inch in on this side, and I can't think why I decided not to. It would have done this. I don't think I had thought about the shaping going 2 different ways on the chair and taken that into consideration. We don't always think things through when we first start off on a project. If you have to do this, just make sure your stitching goes through the crease that you put in, and then just bring it back out to where you need it. You could put trim down the middle if you wanted. You don't have to have it plain. Really make it obvious that there's something wrong there, especially if you don't have enough fabric to really line up. If your pattern is going to be slightly off, if you put a trim in between, then that will hide that problem for you. If it's close enough but not perfect, that would be my advice. And you wouldn't even necessarily have to put the buttons in, you could just leave it with the trim. By sewing this in here, I was able to pull this further across and straighten the line out. What I'd noticed was when I put that side in was this had crept over about 1/2 an inch. It just didn't look even. If at a later date my daughter wants to put some trim down here to make it look more obvious, I can do that for her. I'm just going to cut in here at an angle and twist that up underneath it like that, under and in place. And then here I'm just going to fold that under and put a decorative tack to hold that. I need to cut this back a little bit so it's really fine, and just mess with it until I'm happy and put a tack in. It will look good. And then I'll do the same on the other side. This is just a little bit time consuming. You don't want to cut it too close, because if you do, especially if you've got fabric like this, you're going to end up with the fabric coming apart on you. You do need to be able to fold that underneath, so it's smart, and the same there.